Hari Om. Gently close your eyes. Your fingers interlaced and placed in front. Your head, neck and back erect. Your breathing is normal. Attend to your mind. If any thoughts come in, gently dismiss them. Try not to identify with your thoughts. Focus on the breathing. We will chant the mantra Om followed by the invocatory prayer. Sahana vavatu, sahanam bhunattu, saha viryam karavavahai, tejasvinavaditamastu mavit vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti. We will chant 10 shlokas from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verses 31 till 40, please. Chapter 4, verses 31 till 40, please. यज्ञशिष्टामृतभुजः यान्ति ब्रह्म सनातनम् नायं लोकोऽस्त्ययज्ञस्य कुतोऽन्यः कुरु सत्तमा एवं बहुविधा यज्ञाः वितथा ब्रह्मणो मुखे कर्मजान् विद्दितान् सर्वान् एवं ज्ञात्वा विमोक्ष्यसे श्रेयान् द्रव्यमयाद्यज्ञात् ज्ञानयज्ञः परन्तप सर्वं कर्माखिलं पार्थ ज्ञाने परिसमाप्यते तद्विद्धि प्रणिपातेन परिप्रश्नेन सेवया upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninastattvadarshinah ye jnatva na punarmoham evam yasyasi pandava yena bhutanyasheshena द्रक्ष्यस्यात्मन्यथो मयि अपि चेदसि पापेभ्यः सर्वेभ्यः पापकृत्तमः सर्वं ज्ञानप्लवेनैव वृजिनं सन्तरिष्यसि यथैधांसे समेऽग्निः भस्मसात् कुरुतेऽर्जुन ज्ञानाग्निः सर्वकर्माणि भस्मसात् कुरुते तथा न हि ज्ञानेन सदृशम् पवित्रमिह विद्यते तत्स्वयं योगसंसिद्धः कालेनात्मनि विन्दति श्रद्धावान् लभते ज्ञानम् तत्परः संयतेन्द्रियः ज्ञानं लब्ध्वा परां शान्तिम् अचिरेणाधिगच्छति आयश्च श्रद्धधानश्च संशयात्मा विनश्यति नायं लोकोऽस्ति न परः न सुखं संशयात्मनः. The 40th shloka, the first line, first word is ayajñascha shraddhadhanascha. Ayajñascha shraddhadhanascha संशयात्मा विनश्यति नायं लोकोऽस्ति न परः न सुखं संशयात्मनः. Cleanliness. So in continuation with our previous session, the last session we discussed about how to cleanse the desires. We started from the external world and then we moved towards the immediate environment, whether it is the house, it is the office, the playground, wherever we are, keeping the environment clean. And then we move to closer the physical body, keeping the physical body clean, and then moving inwards, keeping the mind, the feelings, the likes, dislikes, emotions clean, and then further the thoughts and ideas, the intellect to be kept clean, and then the vasanas. So far we have discussed the environment, the outside world, the immediate environment, the physical body, and last couple of sessions we were discussing about cleansing the mind. Since the mind is the seat of likes and dislikes, feelings, emotions, desires, we have so far covered likes and dislikes and desires. In desires, a human being possesses innumerous desires. Right from birth till death, a human being is continuously living on desires. When we're talking about desires here, it can be the gross desire pertaining to the world, the terrestrial world, or the subtle desire pertaining to the spiritual world. World being the same, the kind of thoughts and ideas that a person entertains, that determines whether it is the desire pertaining to the terrestrial world or the desire pertaining to the spiritual world. Desires pertaining to the the gross desires pertaining to the external world can be termed here as the extroverted desire, and desires pertaining to the spiritual world can be termed here as the introverted desire. So a person is running after materiality and sensuality can be termed as the gross desires, and those who have risen above these material and sensual desires, the materiality and sensuality do not bring them joy anymore. It's not that they have not experienced it, they have experienced it, but they have come to a firm understanding that they no longer bring them they no longer bring them joy by entertaining such desires. Then they look for that happiness from where they are able to be permanently satiated. Since the desires pertaining to materiality and sensuality, it is temporary. Only upon external contact it produces joy. Then a person starts questioning, is there any happiness which is permanent? And then the person start looking not in the external world but somewhere else. That somewhere else is what beautifully Arthur Schopenhauer says it. It is difficult to find happiness within oneself, but impossible to find it anywhere else. So those who have experienced the external world, they come to an understanding that happiness is not there upon contact. Then they look inwards, and here they are slowly becoming introverted, and a person may start with gross spiritual activity, performing rituals, worship, gross worship with the form of an idol, etc. Then again slowly move towards identifying with the gross objects. In this case, though it is a spiritual path, religious path, a person slowly come out of that fiendish worship, gross worship, and then move towards the subtle form of worship where a person is able to identify the reality in all forms, all names and forms. Therefore, we can say here that a person, we're talking about cleansing of desires. if we analyze that desires pertaining to the materialistic world, a person is running after gross material wealth. So a person is thinking wealth is be all and end all of life. With wealth, a person can attain anything. For the sake of attaining wealth, a person will do anything. Then in life, a time comes where the person no longer find any happiness by possessing or parting with wealth here, because the person is only accumulating wealth. Then that realization there is, with wealth we can only exchange with another commodity, but cannot get that happiness, that subtle joy. So with wealth you can attain comforts, we can get comforts, increase the comforts, but the person cannot attain a true happiness. So when that realization happens only with reference to wealth, then we can say the person has cleansed the desire with regards to wealth. What has happened here? The person has picked up a subtle desire. That subtle desire here is what we are terming here as jnanam, knowledge. Then the gross desire automatically drops off. The gross desire in this context is running after materiality. The same thing happens with sensuality. A person is thinking upon sensual contact, a person gets happiness. So in order to increase the quantum of happiness, the person increases the number of contact. But over a period of time, the happiness does not increase, the happiness actually decreases, and then a person is completely neutralized with the sensual pleasure. So even upon contact, the person does not attain any happiness. Then that understanding comes to the person, that jnanam here is, it is not because of the sensual contact that I am attaining happiness. It is the discrete contact. So when we are talking about discrete contact here, then that person, is practically gaining knowledge, is gaining a subtle desire, where the person is coming to an understanding that if I am only indulging in sensual desire, I am not attaining any happiness. Therefore, I have to, withdraw myself. So that subtle thought is getting, established, that I have to stay away. I should not indulge. So that subtle desire is displacing the gross desire, and this is what we are talking about cleansing with reference to the sensual pleasure. You can extend this concept to all the materialistic desires. We're talking about shopaholic, workaholic, alcoholic. The principle is the same. The field of activity may be different. Where you apply. One may be indulging in smoking, one may be indulging in womanizing, another may be indulging in clothing, another may be indulging in buying objects. There are people, those who invest money in stock exchange. Even that is also a weakness. I'm not saying here that investing money in stock exchange is a weakness, but that greed factor. So, if a person is able to diagnose what is one's weakness and then trying to attain that realization with jnanam, knowledge, and entertain a higher desire whereby the lower desire is cleansed. The lower desire no longer come and disturb the person. Later on, what happens is, when the person may be amidst the environment, but that external environment do not come and disturb him or her. So the person has gained control over that desire. Initially, without that environment, the person is, disturbed. So this is the cleansing process with regards to desires. So the other aspect of desire is the desire modifies into the 7 aspects. In desire, when it is fulfilled, you become happy. When you are happy, you are not just happy, you want more and more happiness. So greed. Where there is greed, if it is not controlled properly, then you get into delusion, moha. So desire is kama, fulfilled, sukham, happiness, and then happiness gets into greed, lobha. Then when you are happy, supremely happy, then you start comparing with others. Then what happens there is, when you have more than others, then it is mada, arrogance. When you have less than others, matsarya, envy. Whether it is greed, arrogance, or envy, they all lead you to delusion, moha. The other aspect is, if the desire is not fulfilled, then a person is disturbed, disappointed, anger, krodha. Directly, krodha leads a person to moha. So at all levels, that control over the root desire is what is essential here. So what is controlling the desire? What is controlling the mind? There has to be something subtler than the mind. In the last session, we were talking about the hierarchy. Physical body is gross. Subtler than the physical body is the mind. It is the mind which controls the physical body. Subtler than the mind is the intellect. The intellect controls the mind. The intellect controls the physical body through the mind. This is the significance of you would have seen pictures of Lord Krishna and Arjuna sitting in a chariot. Either it is 4 horses or 5 horses. There need not be any discussion on that. The Kathopanishad is talking about this, the 5 horses. And there is the charioteer. The horses and the charioteer, the chariot symbolize a human being. The 5 senses are portrayed as the horses, extremely powerful. Then the horses are controlled by the ropes, the reins. The reins is the mind here, and it is held by the charioteer who is driving the chariot. The charioteer is the intellect. So the chariot, the wheels, etc. represent the physical body with the 5 senses. The reins is the mind. And the charioteer is the intellect. And the person who's riding is the jiva. Jivatma. So this as a whole represents the human being. If the charioteer is asleep, then he is not holding the reins firmly. The horses by themselves run in a direction. It may not take the person, the chariot, to the right destination. Same way, if the intellect is not controlling the mind and the mind not controlling the senses, then there is destruction. On the other hand, if the charioteer is holding the reins firmly and the horses are driven in that particular direction as desired by the charioteer, then the chariot as a whole reach the right destination. Same way, if the intellect is controlling the mind and the mind controlling the senses, then the individual will reach the right destination. So this is the hierarchy: the senses, the physical body, the mind and the intellect. Most of the times when the intellect is not alert, not present, then the mind by itself cannot take any decision. Mind cannot think. Mind can only feel. Intellect thinks. Intellect cannot feel. So the mind by itself takes the decision, gives control to the senses, and that's when there is it can be detrimental, sometimes it can be fatal. And whatever we are talking about here, the likes and dislikes of the mind, if it is not governed by the intellect, then the likes and dislikes here, the mind by itself gives control to the instruction to the physical body, and the physical body indulges, and then it's sometimes detrimental. We're talking about desires, then anger, greed, arrogance, envy, lust by themselves give instructions to the senses, the physical body, detrimental, and it can be fatal sometimes. So when we are talking about cleansing the desires here, when the intellect picks up a thought, and this can happen only where there is jnanam, slowly over a period of time the intellect gains strength and reigns supreme, control over the mind, the desire, the likes and dislikes, etc. Then slowly it is the intellect which gives the instructions to the senses. The mind behaves here. This can happen over a period of time. It cannot happen overnight. So whether it is materiality, sensuality, even that spiritual study also has to be discreet here. So so far we have discussed about the desires. Now the same desire, when a person is slowly coming out of materiality and sensuality, now is entertaining a desire for study, reflection of higher values of life, then the intellect is pitching up a higher thought here, with which the lower desires pertaining to the materiality and sensuality is slowly reducing. So to what extent the person is able to identify with the study of higher values, to that extent the person is able to come out of materiality and sensuality, the world, the terrestrial world here. And slowly the cleansing process takes place. This is something exactly like a lake which is full of green covering, moss, algae, the thick the water stems, the roots and all that is so thick that it's completely covering the entire lake. You can't at one stretch clean the whole thing. So little by little you are pulling it out, and then throwing it on the shore, on the banks. And then this is effort. There is a lot of effort involved here. So when you are pulling it little by little, make sure that it's again you don't fall back into the old habits. Then when you have completely clean, then the water is absolutely pure. And that is what we are talking about here. Another aspect is the feelings, emotions. All these jealousy, greed, anger, they're all feelings. On one hand, we're talking about desires. So the feelings and emotions, again, if it is used for selfish ends, then it is detrimental. So again, the intellect picks up a higher desire, is able to identify that a person is completely caught up in jealousy, greed, anger. To know that a person is getting angry itself is a very high state of spiritual development. A person doesn't know that he or she is getting angry, is short-tempered, is jealous, is greedy. A person thinks that is a way of life. And by acting on that jealousy, by acting on lust, by acting on greed, a person is getting caught up. And by gaining knowledge here, a person is able to identify with the higher values. To that extent, a person is coming out of the lower desires. And this can happen only when there is a good satsang. For example, in the Mahabharata, Duryodhana had so much of jealousy towards the welfare. He could not even digest the thought that the Pandavas, Arjuna and company, they are whether in terms of material wealth, whether in terms of power, he couldn't digest that concept. So he was full of jealousy. He was jealous of the Pandava prince. And people around Duryodhana were also, instead of trying to get him, help him, they were fanning. They were only making him more and more jealous. Whereas on the other hand, Arjuna, he had sought the help of Krishna. By surrendering to Krishna, he said, "You are my savior, you alone can help me." So in this context, it is very clear that to come out of jealousy or greed or any cleansing process, it is very much essential that first you should diagnose that what is it you are suffering from, the inner disease here, in terms of desires or likes and dislikes or attachment or whatever it is, and seek wise counsel. Otherwise, it is very difficult to come out of this weakness. So in the case of Duryodhana, he only aggravated his jealousy, and because of more and more jealous, whatever desires he was entertaining, they were not getting fulfilled. So more disappointment, and ultimately it was detrimental to his own life. Whereas in the case of Arjuna, because he surrendered to Lord Krishna and sought his help, his advice, and acted on that advice, so that little personalization, the little disturbance in the form of attachment towards his own people slowly reduced, because he was identifying with the higher values here. When I'm talking about higher values here, a person was gaining knowledge of higher values. What happens in terms of attachment? Therefore, Arjuna was able to come out of, he was able to cleanse the lower desires. this is the process of cleansing any form of desire. And once a person has come to the stage of meditation, where the bulk of desires are cleansed or dropped, then the person is able to single-pointedly focus on Atman. So, in the next session, I would like to bring in mathematically how from the past, how a person cleanses his desires, and then from the present, how he moves towards the future to the seat of meditation and then attain realization. If we are able to understand that mathematically, then theoretically we are able to understand it, then we can extend the same principle when we are experiencing it. So in the last session we did say that life did not begin this birth. Life is a continuation, and we cannot assuredly say that this is the last birth and there is no life after this birth or death. So since it is a continuation, even our cleansing process is is a continuation. It's an ongoing process. That sadhak should have that firm determination that yes, in this lifetime I am fortunate enough to gain this knowledge, and without result orientation, how can I keep cleansing my desires? That should be the main approach. So in the next session we will again discuss the desires part of it with reference to mathematical value, and then we move towards meditation, where in the seat of meditation the sadhak is having only one thought, the thought of the self, where all the other thoughts pertaining to the world have been completely cleansed, and how he slides into realization, that complete transformation. We will again meet. Thank you so much. Hari Om.